NBA totals for Thursday, November 3rd. We have 5 games on the board today. We're going to look at 3 of them. We're not going to have a play on the Boston Cleveland game, at least not on the totals. You might have to check out another video for that one. Again, the sides have not been going well at all, so just remember that as as you take a look at my picks there. Totals we're hovering just below 500. We're also not going to take a play on Oklahoma City and Golden State. Really high total there at 226. After breaking it down, I just couldn't find one way to go to the other. So for me, that's a layoff. And that Boston Cleveland game as well, with Boston coming off that back-to-back. As far as the total is concerned, I just couldn't find value on either side. But with the other 3, I think we got a little bit of a good breakdown, if you will, in the analysis to give us, I think, a good lean at least. But these are going to be official plays for me for the totals. Let's go ahead and let's start with we got Sacramento and Orlando. Odds makers have it at 199. That's across the board at SBR. I'm going to take the under in that matchup. Now, Orlando, it seems like Vogel has wanted to go pretty fast this year as, they've gotten up 90 attempts per game, and they're also allowing about 90 attempts per game. That's the magic, but they just don't have a lot of scores. They're only averaging 95 points a game so far this season, and I think he's going to have a tough go there, until they bring in a little bit more talent, but that's the way it's been there with Orlando the past couple of years. They're young, so there's opportunities there. I'm still not sure why they got rid of Oladipo, and I'm still not sure about Ibaka coming there, who's a pretty good talent. So I wasn't really sure what that organization was doing. Vogel's a great pickup. He's a great coach. He's going to be fine there. But the under, I think, is a smart play here. When we look at Sacramento, they've been slow this year. Right now, they're number 1 in the league in opponent attempts per game, and they're also only getting up 81 attempts per game. So they're allowing, I think, just under 80 attempts, but they rank first in the league in that category, and they've been just going at a pretty slow pace, but they are averaging 100 points per game. But we got Dave Yeager versus Frank Vogel, 2 good defensive coaches. When they met up with Memphis and Indiana, Vogel at Indiana and Yeager at Memphis, different personnel, but we looked at a final of 180 last year and also another final high 215, but they scored 67 points in the fourth quarter. That's so rare. That just does not happen. This year it's been kind of crazy, but that doesn't happen very often. I don't anticipate for that to happen tonight. So 2 good defensive coaches. I don't think this is going to be really up and down. I'm going to back under the total of 199. Okay. That's the Sacramento, Orlando. That's across the board at SBR. Next up, we got Denver, Minnesota. Also, I'm going to go under 209. I have that at Bookmaker right now. Minnesota's been great this year. I think, let me change that. They were great last game. I'll say that. They've been decent. And this is a really young, talented team. I've said that every time I've talked about them. Right now, they're shooting 49% from the field. That's really good. They're averaging 105 points per game. But they're really efficient also. They're only averaging 78.7 attempts per game. That ranks second to last in pace. So they're not getting up a lot of shots. Denver, I think, is good enough defensively to hold them to a reasonable number. And I definitely think Minnesota is good enough to hold Denver to a reasonable number. Now, Denver, they're averaging 107 points per game, but they're only averaging 45.3%. That's an effective field goal percentage, but that ranks second to last in the league. So offensively, they haven't been that efficient. But on the other hand, defensively, they're allowing teams 47.7% ineffective field goal percentage. That's in the top 10. So Mike Malone's did a nice job. They got some talent as well, that Denver team. But still, you're talking about Minnesota. They've only allowed 79.7 attempts per game. That ranks 4th in the NBA, which brings me back to that Sacramento play where Sacramento is, they're definitely allowing much less than 80 attempts per game. But I digress. Let's get back to this Minnesota team with Tom Thibodeau. They're allowing, 79.7 attempts per game. That's not very many. So I look for Minnesota to put the clamps down defensively, at least do a good job enough to go ahead and keep us under this really high 209. I could kind of, you got to see where odds makers are coming from on this. You got 107, 105. That's what they're averaging. But when you dig into the statistics, these teams are actually not super fast paced. Denver's traditionally, their organization over the past several years is one of the more higher tempo teams. But under Mike Malone, they're not. And Tom Thibodeau traditionally is not a high tempo tempo coach. Now, could they get over the 209? I mean, well, yeah, I'm barely not even at 500 on my pick. So although we have all these wonderful statistics, they might shoot like Minnesota might be lights out. I mean, real quick, I digress on just one point real fast. Let's look at what's a good one to look at, like Washington and Toronto. That's a pretty good one. Well, Utah versus San Antonio, I think that's a great example. You look at Utah versus San Antonio, they played low totals almost all the time. Utah comes into San Antonio, they shoot 70% in the first half, or first quarter, excuse me. And they shot, about 60% for the first half, and they beat San Antonio. So sometimes, even with the slow pace, you still have high shooting percentages, and sometimes guys just have good nights. So we're just going with the statistics here, and I think the statistics tell us this is going to be a slower pace game. There's going to be some scoring, but 209 is just too high. It's just too high. In my opinion, that's how I see it, so I'm going to take under the total between Denver and Minnesota, and that is at Bookmaker. That's 209. All right, last one on the board. We got Indiana versus Milwaukee, and it's at 213.5. That's across the board, but I'm going to go over the total. Right now I got it at Pinnacle Sports. So over the 213.5 on the highest, on one of the higher totals, we've seen this past week, that 213.5. But you're talking about an Indiana team, they're averaging 110 points per game. Milwaukee, they're averaging 101 points per game, which doesn't get us to that 213. But what does start to get us there is their defense. Nate McMillan has brought in a really high-tempo, fast offense with Indiana. They're averaging 91.5 attempts per game. That ranks second in the NBA. On top of that, they're allowing 112 points per game. They're playing at Milwaukee. I think Milwaukee's going to be able to score. They're allowing 106.5 points per game, and they're getting up 89.5 attempts per game. That ranks seventh in the NBA. So I think this has a really high tempo potential. But again, like I said in my last analysis, just because they go high tempo doesn't mean they're going to make shots. OKC and the Clippers yesterday, pretty good pace. They couldn't hit a bucket, and that happens sometimes. Guys have bad nights. So we're just going here with the statistics, and I think eventually, my point is this on all these breakdowns. Eventually, as we continue to break these down and we analyze them efficiently and correctly, we're going to really start to see, some winners coming along here. Unfortunately, it's just been really wonky this first week, but I do not anticipate that to continue all the way. Not all the way till the end of the year for sure, but not even all the way until Christmas. I mean, this first couple weeks might be bumpy, but we're going to get on track here really soon because I feel like because the research is there for us to go ahead and make some good picks. All right, so one last thing I did want to mention about Indiana, Milwaukee. They got talent across the board, and they rank 5th and 6th in assists as well. So they're moving the ball. They're getting up good shots. They're both shooting, I think, just a bit over 45%. So I think we're going to see a high-scoring affair in this one. So I'm going to back over the total. All right, so let's go ahead and let's take one last look at these. And I hope you're enjoying this segment. It's a really good segment, really fun segment to do. Sorry, it's you have to, articulate how you say things sometimes because people misconstrue it. It hasn't been good as far as value or getting profits. Not yet, but I think it has been interesting as we get to, go ahead and look at some numbers with these teams as the NBA season continues. I find it fascinating and a lot of fun to do. I hope, if it's not profitable, I hope you at least enjoy the video. And you don't need to slam me anymore, by the way, guys. I'm well aware I'm not doing that great. If you want to do it, that's fine. It kind of makes me chuckle. But let's go ahead and let's recap. We got Sacramento, Orlando under the 199. That's across the board at SBR. We got Denver, Minnesota under the 209. I found that one at Bookmaker, but that's also kind of across the board at SBR. And we got Indiana, Milwaukee over the 213.5. That is at Pinnacle Sports. Really, two other good games out there, of course, is that Cleveland-Boston game. That's going to be awesome. And OKC and Golden State, that's going to be a great one as well. Congratulations to the Chicago Cubs fans. Was that one of the greatest series I've ever seen and one of the greatest baseball games I've seen in recent memory, Game 7 with everything online. That was a fantastic game. So both teams should be, both fan bases should be elated, even the Indians fans. That was amazing. So congratulations to Cleveland on a great season. And those are our NBA rundowns of totals, and we're going to continue this segment, and we're going to get rolling. We're going to get rolling, and I wish you luck on your picks today.